how do you feel about the emergence of a kind of global generation, or a younger generation that feels themselves to be incredibly networked to each other globally, and what I see anyway is the emergence of a kind of very ethically driven generation. Like, are you skeptical or confident in the thought that a lot of micro strategies and micro networking and sort of connections between countries electronically and otherwise, and the availability of knowledge, for example, to be able to see a film? I mean, it's very interesting to see a young American filmmaker deep in Africa. That it's part of that. Is this complementary to what you're trying to achieve at the bigger level, or do you think the entrenched forces are able to, as it were, brush that off, or even use it to their advantage? This is my fear. Of
One
course.
small sort of anecdote about that. We, the company before the one I just founded was actually in part funded by Farallon and had a global climate change, green power focus. And we worked with a lot of corporations. We started it right around the time when An Inconvenient Truth came out. And we saw a lot of interest from corporations just growing to understand more about their carbon footprint. And when we really dug into why that was starting to happen, the time after time we would hear that the CEO's children were coming to the CEO and saying, I can't believe you run this company and you're not worried about this issue. So, I mean, that's not exactly responding to your point, but you know, corporations in this country have done more than the Congress. I mean,
yes, that's true.
And that's been largely, I think, a cultural sort of generational shift.
Right, because the optimistic side says that if more and more people know about your radiators and how smart it is in this other sense, or let's say how stupid it is to leave things the way they are, it seems, if that goes viral, and the simplicity of your approach, I mean, I think this is the thought, that it can sort of chip away at the social contract, which somehow, I love this point that was made earlier, that if you see the oil company as the other and as the enemy, as if when you get in your car, you're somehow distinct from the oil company.
That's interesting.
Then we don't stand a chance. So kind of, it seems to me it's worth considering the politics of the chipping away, but the power of your approach right now is to actually take it to a wholly other level, like to get the business community to understand stupidity at that level. I mean, you do drawings of the global economy that are similar to your drawings of a New York apartment building, and just show the stupidity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is an opportunity to talk about total system failure.
Right.
You know, not finger pointing at companies, but finger pointing at the operating manual that we all function under, i.e. modern capitalism. And I think we heard earlier, I forget who it was, someone was saying this is about capitalism.
Right.
And you know, I make clear the obligatory statement, I'm not a communist or anything like that. I'm a nominally successful capitalist. But you know, the system stinks on things like this. The way we reward executives in these companies, the way we allow them to get away with it. In my country, for example, this stuff, heating in homes, is far more important than anything you can do with wind and solar in terms of emissions, in terms of money saved, in terms of lives saved. I don't know what the stats are here in America, but every year in Britain, something like 20,000 old grands and grannies and granddads die from hypothermia in leaky homes that didn't have to be leaky.
Right.
And I am told by my friends who operate in energy efficiency that the equivalent figure in Finland, that significantly colder country than the United Kingdom, than the cold United Kingdom, is precisely zero. You know?
Right.
How can we let these energy companies get away with it? within the system. And the governments themselves now, over the last couple of years, energy bills, gas and electricity have become a major political issue in the UK because they've soared so high and there's been so much price gouging by the big utilities. And this too, I think, is a total system failure. We need to be asking ourselves about the operating manual of the business world. And I say that, as I say, not as a communist, but as a nominally successful capitalist. I don't like the system that we're operating in for reasons like this.
Right. Would you criminalize it?
It's
tempting,
it's not for people like me to decide. I think that this is a point that I often make to corporate audiences. Some of these companies should be worried about society's ability to look back in anger beyond the kinds of events that their behavior, their corporate behavior, is teeing up. So it won't be for me, people like me, to decide. But if they really mess up, given the stakes with energy, people will be looking back, and they'll be looking back in anger. And what we haven't done is incarcerate any of the people who are guilty of systemic fraud at the top of the financial institutions.
Right. Just one,
So that doesn't present a promising picture.
I take that another way.
You do?
You know, they fooled us once.
We're not going to fall for it
and we're not going to fall for it again. And that, I think, history isn't destiny on this one. I think the reason that they only jailed the Madoffs and the particularly criminal creatures look at what J.P. Morgan has just got away with in this country.
And that poor Credit Suisse guy.
He's
the
European.
low-level
He's the only guy.
low-level guys take all